Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
So everybody, welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. This is a super big treat. I have a guest. I don't usually have a guest because I don't like many people. As I say, I don't usually have guests because I basically do interviews all day. I'm a therapist. So I talk to people one-on-one all day. And so in my podcast, I just take a breather and I just talk to myself. And, you know, that is slightly less irritating than talking to other people all day. I mean, what I really mean to say is that I love talking to people about deep things. So I only really want to have people on a podcast that will go deep. And I know that my guest, who I'm now going to introduce, this is Matthew Fray, and he will go deep talking about relationships. So I can't do small talk. It seems you're probably similar. And this is the guy, I'm going to let you introduce yourself in 1 second, but this is the guy who wrote the article that all of my women of my age, I'm 44, remember going viral on, it was in 2016, right? When it went viral. And it was, what is the title? My wife divorced me because I left dishes by the sink. Did I get that
Very
right?
close. Very close, yeah.
Very close. Okay, so take it away. Introduce yourself after that long introduction.
Well, I really appreciate it. Matthew Fray, I'm that is what I'm honestly most known for. But I got divorced 12 years ago. I started blogging about it.
Yeah.
And that was in like year 3 of the blogging experience and when that happened. And probably around the time I feel like I had developed enough vocabulary to really articulate like relational issues on like, like a meaningful level. But it took a long time to get there. I have spent, the last handful of years, let's say about 6.5, working with clients. People started asking me if I'd work with them. I didn't set out to do that. I said no a bunch of times. And then finally I got arm twisted into doing it. And my life now is working in a very amateurish by comparison to you capacity, trying to help people develop relational habits and skills as I see it is like my role to be like an accountability partner, to try to break through when sometimes, especially with men, where sometimes they're not hearing their wives because they usually get so defensive about perceived criticism. And then the thing I'm sort of most proud of is that I'm author of a book that came out a couple of years ago called This Is How Your Marriage Ends, a hopeful approach to saving relationships, that if you've not heard of before, I hope you'll check out.
Yeah, and what I like about you and what you shared was that it was directly relevant to you. So it wasn't just prescriptive. You were literally saying that you had been the guy that didn't listen to your wife say what was important to her, and literally you got divorced. So I mean, that's like real world. You can't fake that. That's like real world life experience about what goes wrong when you are more defensive, right?
Yeah, no, that was very much me. I like I'm a little turned off by the like sort of what I think of as like the holier than thou, like preachiness. I don't have any problem with educated people teaching people who are trying to learn something. I don't mean to imply that I don't like educated people instructing uneducated people that are trying to learn, but certainly someone like me who is woefully unqualified on paper to be in the personal development space. I don't like the like preachy holier than thou approach. And I never I don't want to make it sound like it's so calculated. My default setting is to say, I effed up this way, this way, this way.
Yeah.
If I tell you the story of how I got from point A to where I am today, and you somehow believe where I am today would be useful for you and your relationship life, well, then here's like how I got here. And maybe you can extract like value from that story. That is the way that I think about it and talk about it today.
So what would you say was the whole time frame of all of this? Like basically like you got married and did you originally have issues with kind of with like home management and what they now call the mental load and like all of this stuff? Was that just from go?
Yeah, I think so. Like, man, this is gonna sound so pathetic. I don't think I've ever said this to anybody before. Um, there's a chance. I want to be careful because I wasn't incompetent in my youth. Life's so easy when you're like 20, 21. And I was pretty good at it back then. But I think she'd come over and like tidy up my apartment and things like that. Our
Yeah.
first year of dating, it was my last year of college. We met freshman year, but we didn't get together as like a couple until the final year of college. And that was the first time in my life I was in this like really committed relationship in which we were like sharing schedules, and I'd never been so enmeshed with like another human being. And then we made these plans to move far away. We both grew up in Ohio, went to college in Ohio, and then we're like, hey, let's go live on a beach in Florida. And that was our big plan because when you're from Ohio, you go to Myrtle Beach or beaches in Florida. That's what you do. So, like, we moved down there because we thought that'd be a fun life adventure. And yes, from day one, I absolutely struggled with the mental load stuff, ADHD, hand raise here. Not that that's a legitimate excuse, but also probably a mother that did
Mhm.
everything for me growing
Yeah.
up. I had like the laundry fairy mom where like my clothes would just magically get like in my drawers in my closet. Not okay. Not okay. Probably taught me some poor domestic habits, even though it was an act of love at the time. But anyway, she could handle it. She being my ex-wife, I don't think it was particularly taxing for her to do, say, let's probably say 70%. If I had to guess, she might even say more. I don't know. I don't know that that was like the biggest issue until we had a child. But you know what I mean? It wasn't that, and that's kind of really the point, is that when there was just the two of us, I
Right.
don't think, and I think this is true for a lot of women, that I don't think it's overburdensome to
Yeah.
sort of think for two people. Maybe a little
Yeah.
annoying, maybe feels like I'm in a relationship with somebody who doesn't take personal responsibility, but the mathematics of managing two people in a shared domestic situation is not overly burdensome. Add a couple of children, maybe a pet or two,
Yeah.
and that's when like people start to break.
Right.
And then that was my experience. I didn't step up when our son was born, and the math of it all became too much. And I didn't know how to recognize that until several years later after she
Right.
appropriately decided to end the marriage and I
Yeah.
had whatever epiphanies I needed to have.
Yeah, and it's a really good summary of a lot of the clients that I see in practice and a lot of the things that I write about. And I call it like the over functioning and under functioning dynamic, where like your wife was over functioning and you were under functioning, but that was comfortable to her, you know? I'm sure she grew up, I mean, I don't know anything about her, but like what I usually see in practice, the woman grew up seeing the same kind of thing. And honestly, it feels good when you're in the honeymoon stage, and you're a young woman. And my first marriage was kind of similar to that. You know, you schedule their doctor's appointments and you clean, you tidy up and you organize and you cook and you do like all of these things. And it actually feels really good, you know, like you feel like you're like a real adult and you're almost like running a home and playing house. And since you've only seen men who don't do anything, then you just assume that's what it is to be a heterosexual female, is to do all of that stuff. And it seems like it's going to be really, really fun. And, you know, this is going to be what life is. And then as soon as there's a child, the whole thing kind of changes like immediately, you know,
Yeah.
for a lot of women. And that seems to be what happened to you as well.
Yeah. Not enough battery life to go around once so much energy has to like revolve around the needs of a months old being. And you're trying to like figure out who you are, probably. I mean, and again, I don't want to speak for mothers.
Right.
But I've heard enough themes over the years now. Just there's just so much sacrifice and so much like kind of loss of identity that a lot of women go through when
And
they
do I,
go from young woman with hopes and career ambitions and things like that to suddenly I'm the primary caretaker for this person I never even like imagined in a specific way until here they are, and now they're the person I care the most about. And I don't have a lot of bandwidth for your ass not helping me
Right.
with,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, all of
Totally
the
get it.
things. Yeah.
And do I have correct that you had moved away from family then?
Yeah, we lived near her. So, I told you that little ditty about going to Florida, and then we came back like 5 years later, and
Uh,
we were near like her family. I'm far away from my family of origin, but this is I still live here in the area where she's from, Northeast Ohio, sort of the Cleveland, Ohio area.
well, you have a son, is that right?
Yeah, he's finishing up his junior year of high school. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. So, so yeah, so she moved back toward her family of origin, and then from stuff that I've seen, did her mother especially come in and help, and like instead of you almost, if you weren't doing a lot of stuff, or not really?
I want to say that that was probably more of an emotional thing than it was a logistics
Just-
thing. And we managed, and I don't want to sound, please don't imagine me like in sweatpants, like saying F off like on a Saturday morning. Like
Right, right.
I would whine like an immature, little wimp about it. But at the end of the
You
day,
did the
she's like,
stuff.
hey, we're
Yeah.
adults. We have a house.
Yeah.
Like this is the best possible day. I was like, it's Saturday. We worked all week. Can we like have
Yeah,
fun
it's
for like a
so
little bit?
classic. Yeah, the stuff
Yeah.
that you're saying. Now,
Hmm.
do you ever look in at like the people that you see or just think about your situation differently as you get older and think, I mean, obviously, it's nice that you have thrown yourself on your sword and said, listen, I'm owning all of my contribution. But also, what I see in practice, I have no idea about your situation, but if the woman is more anxious, then she does have a longer list and it does take the whole weekend. And so in those cases, because the anxious woman ADHD guy pairing is huge. I even did like a whole podcast episode about it. I mean, it's really big. It's like for the type A woman and then like the guy that she schleps along with her. And the more anxious or type A she is, like in my practice, we also work on that, because he has a point that the whole weekend isn't supposed to be just an endless slog of just drudgery.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say, it's somewhere in the middle. Definitely type A, definitely
Yeah,
like a task manager.
right.
She's like very good at like organization and
Managing.
management and things like that. And I'm not. And again, I love that you see the pattern in
Yeah.
like your clinical work. That makes perfect sense to me. Um, no, I don't want to paint her as this like militant taskmaster
Well, I meant
that she
more the
wasn't
people
capable
that
of
you
having
see.
fun,
Yeah.
but she did. She I really want to defend her. Like all of her attempts to explain to me, I was just the captain of invalidation. She tried to explain her experience of
Yeah.
putting things off.
Yeah.
Right? She did feel anxiety. She did carry this like weight of
Right.
things that need to be accomplished. And I, being the ADHDer, like I can check out and compartmentalize and not care about all sorts of things. Way more important than like vacuuming the carpet or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. She was unable to, and I guess a debate can be had. And I get a lot of pushback from guys, like in my work,
Yeah.
that are like, "Hey, what, Matt? Why don't your feelings get to matter just as much as your ex-wives in these stories?"
Yeah.
That story about the dish by the sink. It was a drinking glass. They're like, Matt, why don't your feelings and preferences around that dish matter as much as your wives? And my argument is that they do. They do. Where I delineate, separate, I don't know what the right word is here, where I want to pay deference to her is that pain is involved for her in a way that it's not for me. And I think pain should be a differentiator. When I walked into the kitchen and the glass wasn't there, I didn't hurt. I didn't care. I didn't think about it at all. I just went and got a glass.
Yeah.
When she walked in, it could only have meant one of two ideas. One, the scariest one, and it wasn't what it was, but it could have been. I put it there as a power move. I do what I want. You're not the boss of me. And when you and I are at odds, I choose me over you. And I think that's the death of marriage. The second thing it could be is that I sort of did it by accident. And it's true. Let's go to the ADHD thought list. It didn't even occur to me. I don't consider you and I make decisions. And then she's like, that's how unimportant I am. I'm so small and invisible and unseen, unheard, all these things that he essentially forgets. I'm impacted by what he does, and here's the proof. And that can also destroy marriages just more slowly. And that to me is the scariest idea in relationships. The little bits of evidence we leave behind that either communicates, I choose me over you on purpose, or I choose me over you by accident, and you can't trust me to do anything about it.
Yeah, and with ADHD and after lots of marital resentment, a lot of people do the power move too. Like it's not like they don't. And a lot of women do the power move where they make this huge like the sigh, and then they have to put the dish in and they're showing, like they're so martyred. So then it does get into this like really kind of toxic dynamic where both of them are like play acting this Shakespearean tragedy of how terrible their marriage is, and that's usually by the time that happens, people will consider divorce and possibly get into marital counseling, which I wish people would get in earlier, of course, but frequently it's when things are already bad,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think
and
it's terrifying.
yeah. So yeah, it's terrifying to a lot of people. And it's terrifying to the men in that situation because they think it's just going to be two women being like, well, why don't you put the dishes away? Well, why don't you put the dishes away? And it's not that, ironically,
Right.
it's like less that often than they think. Like, because like when some of these women really are very anxious, then we're like, okay, like who cares if the dish is by the sink? Also, who cares to you if you put away the dish? So like in an ideal situation, he would be trying his hardest to put away the dish and she would be trying her hardest not to care about where the dish is. Because literally exposure therapy for anxiety is like leave out the dish. That's what I find so funny about like a lot of these things is that a lot of people, and I don't know anything about your ex-wife obviously, but a lot of people like, so if they are very anxious and type A and they do go to therapy, yes, some therapists will be like, well, why doesn't your husband help more if it sounds like he's not? And also, though, who cares about the husband in a sense? Like, can you tolerate a bit more of having the dish by the sink? And you don't have to put it away either. You could leave it there too. And so there is like a balance and a super individual in every couple, and that's kind of it used to be that, of course, who gives a about the dish, and everybody would think like you did, like in the Mad Men era, like a man would never go and like put the dish away. Like that's her job. Like what kind of like crazy thing is that? But then like I feel like now, and this is of course like close to 10 years after your publication of your post, I think sometimes it's flipped the other way so that the men that you coach have a point, and it's like, wait, like I do literally everything on the list, and then there get to be more things on the list. Like, do you ever see that where like you coach the guy and actually he's doing okay, but there's more stuff built?
Most of the time, I take the approach. I'm usually working one-on-one with men, and I
Mm,
take the approach that the guy's like a lot like me. He almost always says,
yeah,
"I read your book and I see so much of myself in your
yes.
stories." Like, you're somebody who clearly understands because I could have written this too. And I really I like that. So anyway, I always sort of assume the dynamics are really similar as
Got it.
probably an inappropriate assumption. But once in a while, I do. I don't think it's the majority. I do think men have a lot of work to do in the context of mindfulness and intentionality in relationships. And I don't know. I
Did you
hope that
ever
doesn't
talk
sound
about
like blame.
attachment style? Or I mean, I've read
I'm
some,
not well versed enough to do it. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I don't quite have like the knowledge and vocabulary to have that conversation.
but you've heard of avoidant.
Of course.
Yeah, so like this is the worst, not only when the guy's ADHD, but when the guy's ADHD and avoidant, which
Yeah. And that's
I even have a post that's like, whoa, it's directed toward women because I do, half and half. And what would your housework standards be if you felt more loved? So like, like, so would she have, because like, what if you didn't have hands, like what if you were an amputee and you could have put the thing away? Would she have left? Like maybe not because she would have felt if you weren't more avoidant. Like what you're talking about with the dismissiveness, it's not just ADHD. Like there's like a certain personality that finds it difficult to be emotionally vulnerable. And I think that sometimes that's many times, if not most times, that's what the woman is actually wanting, which is like the guy to, as you said, be validating. It's almost like you could have left the cup there, but if you were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But then let's say you kept leaving the cup there all the time because you're just so ADHD. You're like in the first percentile of ADHD, and you're like the guy in Groundhog Day, and she's like, geez, this man cannot remember the cup for shit. But every time he loves me and he's sorry and he really looks like he cares. I mean, I've worked with like veterans, like, and like, for example, like the guy has like nightmares, and to the point that he'll even like hit her or something in the middle of the night because he has like PTSD flashback nightmares. And there's different ways that women handle that. And if the guy is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm going to go in and like talk to a psychiatrist and what the hell's wrong with me? It's a lot different than if the guy, let's say he does it the next week because he still has night terrors. It's still a lot different than if a guy's like, well, you care about that. Like, like, of course, I'm going to do what I want to do. And my brain works how it works, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and I can see like both reactions, and right. I understand even logically, rationally, like, oh my God, like stop trivializing what happened to me over there. Like I didn't mean to. Like I understand why
Yeah.
somebody would say that. It's not even wrong. It's just bad for trust and relationships.
Yeah.
Then that's the way that I talk about it. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with what a defensive person is saying if you
Yeah.
like just isolate it in a vacuum to that one incident.
Yeah.
But if the pattern is, I always hijack scenarios where you articulate a problem you're having, and
Yeah.
I make it about my comfort, my feelings, my opinions, and I always
Yeah.
choose me over you, we'll never have trust and security in a relationship. And that was my pattern. And so, right, like I think a
Yeah.
lot of people hear like the dish by the sink story and they're like, oh, Jesus, she must have been a nightmare. It's like you don't understand the 78,000 other examples of this where
Yeah.
like I dishonor, not necessarily on purpose,
Right.
almost never probably, something that matters to her. And to me, this is the crux of relationships. I inadvertently dishonor you, like I am disrespectful to something you care about.
Yeah.
Not because I'm a jerk necessarily, but because it's not even on my mind. I don't value it like you value it, so it didn't occur to me. An example might be I remember like in the rare instances in which I would do laundry, I didn't always launder her clothes in a manner that, was like how you care for
You
like certain
shrunk a
clothing
lot of
items.
stuff.
Yeah, she wasn't like very happy about it. No, I did learn quickly
Yeah.
because I learned the hard way, guy. But that's an example.
Right.
But
Right.
I was defensive because I was like, my God, I'm like trying to like,
Do the
do laundry and contribute, and then I'm still punished for it. And I hear that from guys all the time. And the thing that I understand today is like the pattern can't be I do something by accident that, let's say, for lack of a better term, hurts you or is a negative outcome for you. And then I don't even give you an avenue to like communicate it to me because
right.
every time, if I don't think what you think or feel what you feel, I choose my different thoughts and feelings over yours. And that was the pattern, by the way, in the
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife only felt loved and respected when I sort of agreed. When I
Yeah.
was like, oh, yeah,
I
I
see.
would think that too. I would feel that too.
Right.
But all of the times I didn't think and feel, I would have some argument. I would get defensive if it was about me. Anyway, I was just really, really good at invalidation. And
And a
so,
devil's advocate, which is something that a lot of guys do. I have a post like devil's advocate use in case you're getting laid too much. Because it is the really, the one that women hate the most. And so you're right. Guys don't only do that about the stuff, this personality type that doesn't only do it about stuff that they did. Like literally, like if the wife complains about her boss giving her work on a Friday, they'll be like, well, the rest of the weekends are pretty clear. So, I wouldn't say that that's that bad. Or like, a friend, like, didn't call her back. And they're like, well, actually, maybe she was pretty busy, and it's just like this devil's advocate makes the woman feel, and again, this is within the context of where the woman wants more emotional closeness from the guy, and it's not something that he's comfortable giving. It's a distancing mechanism. It's saying like, if I have the chance to be on your side, I will that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is being factually correct. That's the premise of it. That's what like the guy thinks. And I often hear, but do you expect me to lie? Do you expect me to lie? Do you expect me to say something? And I'm sure you hear that too. Do you expect me to say something that I don't agree with?
well, I think I said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, exactly. This one, and I get that pushback when I'm advocating for validation. So, as I'm sure you have, I have my own methodology for trying to articulate the subtle, nuanced distinction between what it means to validate and show up for someone versus agree with everything they think and feel, because they're not the same.
Sure, yeah. And also, it's funny because the guy will often act like totally different at work or with his buddies. And like somebody will say something and he'll be like, oh, yeah, your boss sounds like a real asshole, like so easily because we know that that's like what you say. But then if the wife says something at home within the context of kind of, it feels risky to be intimate, that's what avoidant attachment is like you don't really want to merge too closely with the other person. It doesn't feel comfortable. So like it's almost like the guy is scared that she's going to want to be too close if he becomes some sort of like agreeable guy or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're describing who I was until about age 33. And that's when the divorce happened. And then I was just sort of like broken down into so many pieces at that point that was really easy for me to sort of rebuild
Did you go to
in the
therapy?
way that I am now.
Did you go to therapy after the divorce?
Not exactly, but I feel like I talked to a therapist one time. I wrote about it, how I drank too much
I
and
thought you
called
said
a
a phone therapist, right? You're
yeah,
just trying
it
to
was
look
just
into
yeah,
some
through
stuff.
like my HR departments, like
What
whatever. It's like the thing they give you. It's
the
like, oh, you're an
employee
employee in
assistance
crisis.
program.
Yeah, exactly. And so like one night, and I was really convinced she was like, "Oh my God, I'm talking to this guy," and I never wanted to do that again. Um, I I have worked with a therapist many years later, just
Uh,
because I think it's something like everybody should do. Like, know yourself the best you can, work on yourself all the time. That to me has value. But in the context of like the relationship,
you
the
guys didn't
therapeutic
go to
process
couples
for me was
therapy.
writing it. I'm sorry.
You guys didn't go to couples therapy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We together. Yeah, but in that way that doesn't work. In the way
Yeah,
where you go to try to save a sinking ship at the end,
yeah,
and you're married to somebody who, again, I'm inclined to just raise my hand. I couldn't even articulate the problem. Something I say to people all the time that I'm working with. I said it to somebody yesterday. If you can't sit in front of a third party, like a marriage counselor, and if I can't describe the experience my wife has in our marriage and
yeah,
the ways in which I contribute to that experience positively or negatively. If I can't tell that story in a way where my wife sits next to me and says, that's right. And like nobody can. Everybody's like, no, that's not exactly it. You don't really know me that well. Like you're just reinforcing why I can't be trusted to
yeah.
be your partner. I'm reinforcing why you can't feel secure in our relationship. Because again, either I'm out to get you or you can't even trust me to know you well enough to show up like tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's powerful in couples therapy to say to the person, to each partner, like, give me, like, from first person, what is your spouse feeling? And, like, both of them, when they do it, when they get it right, it could really be transformative,
Right. Yeah.
That's deep empathy, when you could really understand it. It doesn't mean, like, and a lot of guys, by the way, that struggle with ADHD and are more avoidant, some of what they're saying, and this may resonate with you, is like, I don't think I can be the guy who remembers the stuff, like to put the stuff away. So like I'm gonna like really like rabidly defend that I shouldn't have to because I literally cannot envision a world where I became the guy that remembered to do that. And that's like scary because you're saying you're gonna leave basically if I don't do that. You're implying, and I can't. I don't think I can do that. So I'm gonna defend the other side super hard.
Well, that's really interesting. And I remember feeling, I don't know that it was appropriate. I'll let you tell me what you hear, but and I think I see it with the guys that I work with too. There's a sense of betrayal. There's like I'm really, really similar to how I was when we met.
Yes.
I have changed hardly at all, which
Yeah.
admittedly is a huge growth problem for a lot
Right.
of a lot of women who've partnered with people and people who've partnered. It's not universally women, as you know,
Yeah.
that partnered with somebody who like didn't evolve as like life needs may have dictated.
Yeah.
And that was me. But I was offended, for lack of a better term, at the idea that I felt like pressured. I did. I don't know that I've ever said this before either. I felt pressured to propose. She was going to leave within 18 to 24 months. if I didn't propose at
Yeah,
when
were
I
we
was
married? It's like the same marriage. It's
I
my
was like
first marriage.
23. I was like 23, 24.
My situation,
And and
exactly.
I'm like, I'm so young. This is scary. Like, what are you talking about? And
Yeah.
finally, I was like, I'd much rather share a life with her than not. That was the thing that I knew. So I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go do it.
Yeah.
And then my reaction, without accepting any accountability or responsibility for my role in the erosion of trust in the relationship, was I can't believe I'm being rejected when I'm like the same exact person you
Yeah.
were threatening to leave for not proposing,
Right, right.
like 12 years ago or whatever. Anyway, I think I think a lot of people like me, often men, have that experience, and it's very frustrating. But
Yeah.
I also think they fail to calculate, not because they're jerks or because they're idiots, but because we truly don't understand the math, the weight of the pain our relationship partners feel with these sort of like nuanced emotional betrayals around shared domestic
Yeah.
responsibility
And
and absence of consideration, validation,
absence
things
of
like that.
consideration writ large, because I personally think, and I'm like going so light on this, like just to be like, because your article framed things like really well in a way that I at the time really resonated with. 10 years later, over the course of my life, I have stopped really thinking it is as much about the housework because I've worked with so many people in so many situations. I always give the example of like, there's lots of men who deploy, and like are not in the country,
Yeah.
and their wives can either be happy with them or not, and they do zero housework, and the ones who are happy with their husbands have the husbands who say, I miss you, I love you, you're carrying the whole family there, I can't wait to get home and help, like you are a rock star in the limited time that they can contact them, and the ones who are not happy are the ones whose husbands take more of the approach of, I'm doing the important thing out serving our country, yeah, good, being a civilian, that must be rough, haha, and are very dismissive. And those, so we've like controlled for housework. There ain't no housework happening because guys can't do it. Like they're not in the home. And it's the same thing with guys who travel a lot for work or
That's
anything
right.
else.
Yeah.
So I really think that it is the response style. And it's the response style, not even to the stuff that the guy is doing, but to like the stuff that anything that she says about anything. Whenever she comes forward looking to be joined, and it's not like the women, by the way, do not have, I mean, in your little, like right now, what I'm just like explaining about attachment theory, like right this second, there's an avoidant person, which is like the person that you were. And then there's always a preoccupied person that goes along with that, the person who wants too much closeness. And then there's the person who wants too little closeness. And these people find each other. And then, the healthy people, by the way, are the people who are securely attached and they can give and receive, love and have alone time and not have alone time. They always grew up in like super healthy homes and like just like F those people. Like they don't have anything to do with anybody who comes in to see us, honestly. Like, and they are just, they're okay with splitting the housework and all these other things. But the avoidant partner always wants to avoid closeness, and the preoccupied partner searches too much for closeness. And like we'll even follow the person around, the avoidant partner, and be like, didn't you hear me? Don't you care? Don't you listen? Blah, 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 following room to room, especially when they're young, they got more energy, And now it's with the texts. You can always see this dynamic because the guy will be like, what kind of crazy person sends 100 texts in an hour about something like a dish by the sink? And of course, that is crazy. And like, then she has to look in at why am I doing that? Why do I want to, why do I let this make me get so upset instead of maybe setting healthier boundaries around the way this whole relationship goes, you know? But yeah, I forget where I was going with that, but that's more of what I see too, is that it isn't, you're right, it isn't about the glass. It's obviously about what the glass represents in terms of the entire relationship. And I have so many posts that are like, don't start cleaning his dorm room. Don't start writing his letter his cover letters to jobs. Don't start looking for jobs on Indeed for him. Like just like this, just these bullet points of things that over functioning, preoccupied attachment young women do, or have a post like, when your boyfriend won't propose until you stop getting angry that he isn't proposing, because this is just the thing. Like, it's just the dynamic.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
No, you nailed it. That was us largely. I don't want to paint her. She was a little less neurotic than you're like sort of describing in a general way. And I also really truly believe, I hope people don't think it's some PR strategy. I really believe I can articulate how hurt she felt by various things that I did.
Yeah, that's
and
why
I don't think it's
really liked
lunacy.
your post. Women really, really resonated. Did you get any romantic solicitations from your post?
That's really funny. That's funny. I've heard this question before. At the very beginning, when I was like wounded.
Yeah,
there was a couple of years it was weird.
Well, you just went from woman to woman that met you through your post?
No, it was just weird the amount of
solicitation.
crazy stuff, like invitations to places and like photos and stuff.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, what is going on? And like nothing like that has happened for how long have I been writing about it? Since 2013, so like 12 years.
Yeah.
For like 8, like
until my podcast comes out, and then
it seems to correlate. Well, it seems to correlate with like healing. There was something about like the broken version of me that maybe other broken people wanted to try to fix or save.
That's so interesting. That's so
I don't want to, again, I'm not a clinician, so I don't know what their motives
but you're
were.
right. You're right. Like the more calm and centered you seem, then the more securely attached women would be attracted. But those aren't the women that would solicit a man on email randomly, like they're not going to do that. So
I was a disaster. Yeah. In 2013, I was not well. Yeah.
That's funny. So are you in a relationship? I don't know. Oh, you are?
Yeah.
How long?
Yeah. About 6 years.
Wow. That's cool.
So but like, it's really secure. It's like,
no drama.
It's a different house. And it was, I don't want to be, it wasn't like really serious for like the first 3. You know what I mean? It was just like, we just kept like finding ourselves in the same place at the same time. For the last few years, it's been, at some point you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
So sure. I think, I don't know. We're both about the same age. I just turned 46. And I don't know. It's so sane and secure and absent conflict and drama. It's hard to draw experience from it. I also tell all my clients when I talk about it, I'm like, wait till we share an address. Like that's when like the friction points are going to increase dramatically. Right. But right now there's hardly ever any friction points.
Yeah. Well, I'm remarried, and my husband it's very different in that area, in terms of the housework, because he does like a lot of the housework, and it was funny early in when we started living together. I said something to him. I was like, oh, can you clean, something, right? And then later, like an hour later, I said, oh, can you clean whatever, because in my first marriage I was used to like the first 10 are just ignored, and then like eventually maybe you have to like get to a certain thing. And he's like, you told me that already, I did it. And I was like, no, did you clean the thing? Like I couldn't even believe that we were referring to the same thing. And he was like, no, that's what you told me to do, like I did that. And I was like, what? Like, no way, And it was like so it was a very different dynamic. So it is true that if you change in that regard, I always tell people, like, what do you do at work? You know, a lot of guys are super ADHD and they're like, well, actually, I just keep kicking can down the road at work too. But like, there are some guys that are like, if I am told to do something at work, I do the thing. And I was like, well, that's kind of what you got to do at home. And then, of course, I hear, well, she ain't my boss. You know, I just do that
Yeah.
for my boss. And then I'm like, well, listen, you know, like if she knows you have the capacity to do something at work, but you don't do it at home, then obviously you value work more than home, et cetera, et cetera. But it is funny how like that whole area of conflict kind of went away, you know, and then I realized it really had not been about housework at all, but the fact that somebody would listen to you in real time and take you seriously, just like what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I really feel like the housework, which I group with parenting and pet care, as like I just call it shared domestic responsibilities.
Right.
This bucket of things to me provides, in like a statistical way,
Yeah.
the highest amount of instances in which I might inadvertently communicate something that matters to you isn't something you can trust me to be
Yeah.
respectful about. Because, you know, and there's like 1,000 of these. There's like the guy that doesn't turn the dirty clean magnet to the right setting on the dishwasher. There's, you know what I mean? Like the guy that leaves his contact lens case out, drives his wife crazy. He thinks
Yeah.
it's crap that she makes a big deal out of it. But, you know, these are all like
Well, if
real
you
life
ever
examples of,
wanted to know, like more marketing for you, literally, it's like, you know, the ADHD, it's a subset. It isn't just the guys with ADHD that you have. It isn't just the guys who are avoidant attachment. You're like really good at the ADHD avoidant attachment guys. Like that's your people. Like, because remember, there's like there's a lot of avoidant guys that are dismissive about everything, but they're also the guy that is like Superman in the household and he's like ex-military, like whatever he is, and he just like makes all the beds. He does more shit than she does, you know. And so then he's not going to resonate with your stuff, but he should because he's avoiding attachment. And when she says something like, oh, like I can't wait to show you what I got from Target, he's like, oh, I don't have time to look at that, you know, which is like also really dismissive, you know.
I
Like
I mean I'm such a threat to I will I'm such a threat to like participate in that, but to act like it's a little beneath me in like a faux way. And I think about these little things, these little micro, I don't know if microaggressions the word, I don't know what it is, but
micro
I become more
rejections, probably.
self-aware.
We should coin micro rejections.
Yeah. I do the thing that I tell my guys all the time when I'm talking to them. I'm like, hey, I still do some of this stuff. I said the really key distinction between me today and me 12, 15 years ago is I'm pretty self-aware, so I see it pretty quickly and I own it and I apologize. And again, there's so many guys that I think are afraid to apologize because they equate it with I'm guilty of a crime and
Yeah.
I'm not admitting to a bad thing when
Yeah.
I didn't do anything wrong. It's the same guy that says, what, you want me to lie to you?
Yep.
That's how I used to feel. And I'm like, you're not apologizing for that. You're apologizing that the other person can't trust you
Yeah.
to demonstrate care around something they value, where you always act with importance around the things that you sort of organically consider important. So they really know the difference between the stuff that you're not taking seriously at all, their things, versus, you know, sort of your things. It just shows up in a selfish, sort of narcissistic way. I don't like to throw that word around. I don't mean that in a clinical way. I mean it's
Yeah, it's just a
akin to how someone might
self-absorption.
experience narcissism.
Well, even like just the like a lot of women will say like he has a totally different attitude toward like planning a guy's trip. Like a guy's trip, he'll put like 3 months out in the calendar. And she's like, I didn't even know he knew how to access our calendar. And like this thing is in our calendar, and he has never put anything for our family in the calendar. And then the guy will be like, she is terrible. She doesn't want me to go on a guy's trip because she's so controlling. And the reality is like she may be somewhat controlling because she feels frantic to get any of your attention and any of your interest, and then it's a slap in the face that this other thing is prioritized. Or like a conference for work, like he'll have that right on, you know, like he'll know exactly
Yeah.
when that's going to happen. He'll get the tickets, he'll do all the things. Or like his own hobbies is a big one. This is with all the
That's
avoidant
right.
guys are so into the hobbies. Oh, like, you know, like the guys want to sign up for like a Tough Mudder, and I'm going to be doing that in April. And she's like, it's January. I didn't know you did things like 2 months in advance. Who is this? You know,
Yeah.
it's like that same thing. The not
Yeah.
prioritizing, picking what
And
to prioritize.
the fantasy football guys who know like the third string running back on like a team
Yeah,
they never watch and like all their stats from a year ago, but like I can't remember that this is the anniversary of your father passing and this
right,
is a
right, right.
really big deal to you.
Yeah.
Like little things like that like show up all the time. And my favorite story that I have around this is I had an NBA player agent. So his wife and son would weekly experience him taking a call from the player, and they see exactly what it looks like to drop everything and serve the wants and needs of another person.
Right.
And they're like, "My God, look at you. Like
Yeah.
look what you do for this person." And his
Yeah.
obvious comeback is like,
This
"That
is
guy pays
work. I
for all
support
of
the
this stuff."
family, like all
Yeah.
of that.
But that's the same excuse the guy doing 45, 50 hours a week at the corporate office or whatever says too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I
Changes.
probably said
It
things like
changes
that
for a
on
lot
some
of
level.
women when they make more money. And I have like posted some podcasts about this, is because a lot of times when you're not making money as a woman, you're taking time off with the kids, etc. Then you're like, okay, well, I guess that because he has a career, then he has to like always prioritize that and never prioritize me. When a lot of women go back to work and they are prioritizing a career and still doing the majority of the stuff with the kids, which is less of the situation now than it used to be, but still the situation for many, then they're like, wait a second, why would I just like give him all this leeway because he had a career? I now have a career and I'm still responding to school emails and I'm still scheduling the doctor's appointments, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And like that person is almost always the one expected to like leave the office for the sick child
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything. And I don't know, it's rough. It's rough. And then there's like the workplace environment where women are punished for that and men are not like sort of supported in that. Was been my experience.
Yeah.
Now, that could be
It's
that could be
changing some.
regional.
It's
I'm in Northeast Ohio, which is
yeah.
certainly not the most regressive place. But
Yeah.
it's probably somewhere in the middle
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like the most old school parts of this country versus the most progressive. It's
Yeah.
probably somewhere in the middle. But that wouldn't say the average corporate policy around here supports men leaving to go care for the children.
Yeah. In the younger liberal couples that I work with, it's almost it's different. It's like so different that it's almost like destabilizing. I even have a podcast that says like younger working men are condescended to the way that stay-at-home moms used to be in younger liberal couples. It's almost like a lot of things have just completely switched. Like a lot of guys are expected to do half of the home stuff while being the sole breadwinner. And then I'm like, well, wait, what? You know, like that wouldn't be fair if it was either gender dynamic. But there's
Right.
still so much of the world where it is along gender lines. Although I do think it is so much the avoidant attachment style, the ADHD. This is not all men, you know,
That's right.
there's so many men that will come home quick and that give a shit and that will take care of their own stuff. Increasingly, I see men that do more stuff at home. You
Sure.
know, I mean, because, you know, parenting is now considered such a big deal that if she's like hanging out and reading to the kid, then he will do the chores because reading to the kid is considered like really important, you know?
Yeah.
So it is switching like on like a positive note. I think a lot of these gender dynamics are improving a great deal.
No, that's really insightful, and I appreciate you saying it. Really insightful. In fact, I never heard anybody say it quite so succinctly that it's this avoidant attachment sort of personality type that is liable to be doing like a lot of these things.
Yes.
And I've come across it a little bit. I try really, really hard not to imply that I think I definitely don't think it's biology, where I think, men do things this way and women do things this way. I just think observationally in my world.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm typically dealing with men who are on this side of it, and then women who feel, I don't mean this as a judgment, who feel a little bit victimized by it,
Yeah.
mistreated by it, pain because of it. They really resonate with my work. And they're
I
like,
hear
I
you.
hope, Matt, what you've said and or written can break through. Because when I talk to my husband about it, one ear and out the other. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
tends to be like how I'm leveraged is like the middleman. Hey, here's a guy saying exactly what I've said, but maybe you'll listen because it's a guy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I see that, and that's obviously, I'm interested for you to look more into the attachment stuff because I feel like
Yeah,
one of your Substack posts will be about it soon because I
it's
feel like
really
it really
interesting.
resonate with you, and I do feel like you do take a very, like a very owning your own stuff kind of attitude, which then other people can model on if they think that owning a lot of guys, like you said, they equate owning your own stuff with like as though a lawyer had said, so you're admitting culpability right now.
Yeah.
And it's like not that way. It can only ever improve your marriage to own your contribution on both sides, both genders, both attachment styles, everything.
Yeah. If it's the job of a relationship partner to say to the other, verbally or non-verbally, what matters to you is something you can trust me to demonstrate care about.
Yeah.
It then it's not relevant. I mean, I don't I want to be careful. I don't mean to imply that if the pie chart's like 70-30, it's equality, but I think in the context of repair, if I'm responsible for 30% of the damage, I still am responsible for 30% of the damage. Like I have to lean in and I have to like work on those things. And so I absolutely, for all of the men who have felt like I've pointed fingers at them or blamed them or laid like their crappy marriage at their feet, I absolutely promise that I don't think their wives are perfect. I just think they're hurt.
Right.
And what I don't see enough of is I recognize that even though I didn't try to hurt you, you are hurt. And I
Right.
understand that I don't act like I care that you're hurt and
Yeah.
that I don't change anything to protect you from feeling that same pain tomorrow. And
Right.
that's like almost always, if we're going to get really like generic about it, that seems to always be the pattern in relationships that slowly wither and die.
Yeah, it's true because on both sides, people feel as though, I hear from, I'm sure you hear from anyone, I might as well be single, for all of the care that this person is showing me and for all they prioritize me. And it would be easier to be single, and so certainly like when your partner thinks it'd be easier to be single, then it's like, the death knell of the relationship. And that is, if anybody listening to this has ever heard that, then they should immediately try to change their tune because that is really kind of an immediate precursor to actually being single, when people start to say that.
Yeah. And in my experience, it's, it, I'd rather be a single parent to these three kids
Yeah.
than have you be the de facto fourth in the context of all of the things I have
Oh
to
yeah.
juggle and manage all the time. When
Hmm.
like mental load is sort of the crux of the conflict between two people. And I mean, what I found is the sole reason that a lot of these women will hang on are I don't trust my
With
husband.
the kids,
Whether
yeah.
it's every other weekend,
Yeah.
whether it's 50% of the time, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I
Yeah.
don't trust him to love and care for them at a level worthy of how much I love and care for them. So I'd rather take it on the chin, metaphorically, hopefully, and love these kids and care for them until they're out of the house, and then we'll go do the gray divorce thing,
Oh,
which I think is a sad story.
yeah, so many.
Because
I have so many
of
clients who
course,
come in that situation for sure. We have talked way longer than I planned because it was so interesting. So I have a client coming up, but this was like super fun, and I really value you coming on. You talk about so much of the stuff that I talk about, and that's going to resonate with all the Dr. Psych Mom listeners. So maybe we could do it again. It was fun. I hope you had fun.
oh, of course, I'm so grateful. Thank you for making time. It was a
Okay,
pleasure to
great.
speak with you. Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, so this is obviously Matthew Fray, and anybody who is watching, he's great. Read his book. I'm gonna have all of your socials and everything. I actually interacted with you the first time on Substack, so if anybody's watching, they should follow both of our Substacks, which cross refer to each other. And thank you so much. And until next time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day. I appreciate it.
Hey, you too.